What's up?
Oh man, just finished a brutally long, not brutal because of anything in particular, but just a long week of drum recording for the next Shinedown record. So
It's
I
awesome.
think we recorded 6 songs of drums in 3.5 days, which is a lot. Like got tones, got everything mic'd up, got everything rocking and rolling, tracked the songs, comped the performances. Comping is when you take, like, usually with Barry, it's like 3 performances straight through the song and then like getting parts and pieces, like a fill here, a fill there, like, and we'll punch in those things, which means, we'll play the track he already recorded, he'll play along with it, and then we'll hit the record button and it will record just the fill part or just the section we need, and then punch out and keep going. But usually Barry, like, take three is like magic for Barry Kirch. I would say that they're probably on our records there are more take threes. That's probably the majority of our records, is the third time he plays through it once he's comfortable in the room and everything. But comping is when you take all those performances. So you have like 3 or 4 takes and then parts and pieces of stuff, and you make the final take that goes together into the record. So you'll say, "Oh, I like the way this verse sounds, and I like the way this chorus sounds, and then this next verse," and you pull all that stuff into one complete thing. We do the same thing with vocals, same thing with guitars usually. Um, just trying to
Eh,
find the magic, in each one. But that's a lot of work too. It's comping those things together and listening through the song and going, is this serving the song? Is this drum fill the right fill going into the second chorus, because the one going into the first chorus does this, or but yeah, we were doing like 18-hour days, man.
Dear
I'm
God.
very tired right now.
Has there been any songs that you've been a part of where everything came together super quick? Like out of like in terms of all the parts, all the stuff you had to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the poor Barry has to like deal with mine and Dave's and whoever else's guitar player drumming, where we because when you're writing a song, you're just putting down something to have,
Yeah.
um, but unfortunately for them, a lot of the time, the stuff that gets laid down in a songwriting session is what the song likes, and so they're beholden to playing guitar player drum parts a lot of the time. And but we have a good relationship with, like, letting, hey dude, do what you feel here, and let's try what you would do here. And a lot of the times that stuff ends up being what's there. um but so I say that just to say that, like, um sometimes the whole song comes together really fast, meaning the drum parts and everything are there. um I think, we when it's just Brent and I working, we work a little slower on songs, like a song every 4 or 5 days, when it's 3 people in the room, either me, Brent, and Zach, or me and Brent and Dave, or whatever. The songs go really fast. Like this last session, we were doing a song every 2 days. We were writing and like having a demo laid out. So those things are happening fast, no matter what kind of um ones that like feel really great and happen fast. Those are usually the big songs, honestly. Like the your second chances, or your I'll follow yous, or your uh symptoms of being human, or monsters, or whatever. Those all kind of happen pretty quickly.
Is there a
um
song you wish you could go back and rewrite for the first time again?
you mean write it the same way and like experience it again?
Yeah. Or like maybe that way, or if there's a song that you've done where you're like, man, I wish we wrote this 5 years later when we were older, or had gone through the pandemic, or had some other life stuff we went through that to make the song hit differently.
No, not like that. I mean, a song is a record. That's why it's called a record. It's a time, place, and time. It's a recording of where you were at the time. Um, so no, not never that. Um, uh, but I guess, experiencing it all over again. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to, like. There's nothing feels better than completing. For me, nothing feels better than completing a song and listening back to it and knowing that it's really great and knowing that it's really good. Whether or not the public is going to think the same thing, I mean, that's irrelevant at that moment. It's just like, I feel like this is an amazing piece of work, and I've put my whole self into it, writing. Yeah, I mean, but it kind of comes in stages with me because I get the writing and then the engineering and then the mixing and the producing part of it, and kind of in stages. So each one of those plateaus feels really can feel really great. Um, but there's a really great feeling when you complete a demo and you know a song is really really good. Um, and then there is the moment of the song being completely finished for the record, and you know it's really good. For me, it's I get caught up in I hope this is great a lot, and I spend more time hoping than knowing. Um, I just know that I've done all the work that I can possibly do, and I put everything I've got into this thing, and um, I mean, blood on the floor, man, just like you got nothing left. That's what I mean. Like, I don't work 18-hour days to prove a point. I work 18-hour days because I'm like, I'm in it, and I'm leaving it all out there. So that feeling of I posted on my Instagram at the end of the last record. I had these two hard drives in my hand, and it was the Shinedown 7 and Shinedown 7 backup, and it's like, this is finished. It's done now. Like, this is completed. And um that's a very victorious feeling. Um and then the work's just getting started, right? But uh, so I don't know, man. I like with some we talked about last time about those 3 or 4 second moments that feel, that's what happiness is, right? It's like
Yeah.
this, like these short moments of accomplishment or elation or whatever. And so, yeah, I'd love to feel that again, but I will hopefully feel that again. Um, I've already felt it on these songs a couple of times. There's one song in particular that I think it was the first one that we wrote out of the gate, on the last session we did, last writing sessions, and there's this ending to the song that I had in my head. Like, the song came out of a recording I had on my phone, and I had this idea for this ending of this song on that recording, and it all kind of came together, and I got chills just mixing the demo, like
Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah. So those are those little moments, where it's like, oh wow, this is great. And then you got other moments of there's a really really great heartfelt acoustic thing that's very different than maybe some of the stuff we've done before. And I just on the demo, I just wanted to lay down some string parts, some keyboard strings, just to get some. And I thought I'd written these like really like compelling string parts, and then now I listen back to them, like, those string parts are trash and they're ruining the song. So, so I've got to. And I don't even know if the song needs strings. It probably doesn't at this point, but I have to go through that process to figure that out. Like, I figured out that through my terrible, and I don't know if any strings would be right on the song, honestly. So I need to actually go back and pull those out. So when other people are listening to the demo right now, they're not hearing my trash strings.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there are also those moments of like, well, shit, I thought,
Yeah.
I thought I nailed this, and I
I
didn't.
the this past 10 days I'm back with MLE Crew now, and we did one of
Who?
those. We
I don't
did,
know I don't know who that is.
yeah, they're local from
Yeah.
Jacksonville,
Got
Florida.
it.
Um, and we did one of those runs where it's like the shine down, a high paying casino gig, a massive underplay into a festival. And it's always funny when the bands at your level do that, because it's like, hold on, guys, let's make up our mind here. What are we doing?
Yep.
But so MLE Crew headlines the first night of Welcome to Rockville. No weather issues. Awesome. But the opening bands on their stage were like Judas Priest, Anthrax, some of the older school metal bands. And I've always loved Anthrax, and watching Scott Ian and those guys run around, Charlie do their thing.
Yeah, dude.
It got me wondering, is it tougher for the reason why I think I like those old school bands is I like that old school sound.
Yeah.
But like, I guess my question to you is, what's harder for a band? An older band from the 70s, 80s to sound new, or a newer band that came out in the last couple of years to sound old, like the old thrash, old metal? Like, I'm trying to, because I
Well,
love both sounds, but I resonate really with like watching those Anthrax guys and seeing younger generations react the way they were.
so are you asking if like, when you're talking about a younger band sounding, sorry, to recap, you were asking if it's easier for an older band to sound young, or is it easier for a younger band to sound what, more mature, or just like
I would think a band like Anthrax or Judas Priest, those old school '80s bands, have a distinct sound that you don't hear a lot of in newer bands today, unless those newer bands
well,
are
I mean, I think if you're trying to do something other than being yourself, you're doing the wrong thing anyway, right?
right.
I mean, as far as like, so is it difficult for like an older band, and we're getting older, we're not old, right? But is it difficult to like stay young on stage and like do that? Yeah, man, it's hard. It's your body hurts more, and you want to deliver the same thing you delivered when you're in your 20s. But I remember I used to, I mean, and people have seen me do it. I used to jump off of my bass cabinets like a couple times during the show. Like I'd be, 8 feet in the air and no problem, nothing. Um, and then I started jumping off the drum riser, and now I don't jump off of anything. You know, I still jump around, but it's like, but you still want to deliver that level of performance. And my voice has dropped. Like my range has dropped as I've gotten older. And so singing some of those higher parts, I remember Zach and I have switched parts now on some things. I have to sing a lot of falsetto stuff on the high stuff where I used to just belt it out. Um, but the heart's still there, right? I mean, I still want to just go out and slay and deliver this great performance. Um, and so that's not easy to do, but if it's who you are and it's in your heart and it's what you feel, you're going to be yourself no matter what. And I would like to think that, man, look, if I'm in my 70s doing this, which is possible, that the intent will still be there, the heart will still be there. And that's why we try to keep ourselves up in shape when we're not playing, because I want to be able to maintain that as much as I can. Um, Working out gets harder. I mean, I've sort of hit a place where like I'm getting injured working out now more, like not injured, but having pains and things that I'm cautious of. And it's like, you know, like, like I was doing a workout a couple days ago where I do this thing in my workouts where I'll take, 60, 70 pounds, you know, uh, 35 in each hand or whatever, and walk up and down, 10 steps up, 10 steps down, 10 steps up, 10 steps up and down like that, just walking. And you do that 10 times and you're winded. I mean, it's not easy to do. Um, but I started feeling this little tiny burn in the back of my hamstring. Not like a tired burn, like is this thing gonna pop? You know?
Right.
And so I had to stop doing that. And I picked up a different workout to do in the circuit, and just said, okay, I'll do tricep dips instead, or something not lower body. Um, Whereas normally, like back in the day, I would have just pushed through that. Now I'm like, I don't want to end up with a torn hamstring, because that's not going to be good. So anyway, it is difficult to maintain, good difficult though, the good hard to maintain, a level of being able to perform when you get older. Uh, a younger band trying to sound like Anthrax, is that what you're kind of getting at? Like
Yeah, like how do you
if that's who they are, if that's what they love, that's the thing, man. Like every single band, I don't give a shit who you are. All these bands are like, oh, we're original. No, you're not. You're original unto yourself, but you're not original. Like you heard somebody or you saw something or
yeah.
you experienced a show where you saw a player play and they played a certain way and they jumped around and they moved a certain way and you said, I want to do that and I want to be that. So, um, you know, if that's what makes you tick, if you've seen something and you're inspired by something that is older and that's who you are, then that's who you are. Um, can it be hokey? Yeah. I mean, like you can steal someone's sound and just sound like the person, or you can uh it happens with songwriting a lot, man, like where you'll hear something and you're like, "Oh man, I love the way that sounds." And so you're like, "I want to make something like," and we've done this before, like it happens all the time. Like I want to make something like that. Um, but then maybe you wade too far into the water of it being like that thing, and it's not genuine, and it never, ever, ever works. You can't recreate the thing you love. You have to be inspired by it, right? So it's the same thing with bands too. It's like if a band is just trying to be that that thing that they heard, I don't know if it's going to work as well as if I'm not saying it can't work, but I think it can get hokey. And if you're just inspired by it and you're taking that fire that you get from that thing and applying it to what you do, um, I think that but look, man, music is difficult no matter what. It's not easy to success isn't easy either. Whether you're a young band or an old band, success is difficult. Um, maybe to your point, if you're a young band, success is proving yourself. Uh, if you're an older band, it's proving that you can maintain, you know.
Right.
Um, it just never stops. And I'm tired, man. I'll admit it. I am tired. I'm at an age where a lot of people slow down. I can feel the want to slow down, definitely. Um, and I am definitely at a place where I need to keep that in check, and I need to have some serious conversations with myself. I found myself feeling this way, like it's like, hey man, are you going to keep doing this? Because if you're going to keep doing this, you can't sleep on it. You got to be back in it. And I'm not saying I'm not in it. I am in it. I've just like I just talked about the work and the
Yeah.
creative work. I'm talking about the touring and the physical thing. It's like I've got to find that fire again to like be relentless because look, man, I feel like I've kind of morphed into a different person now. I spent my younger years, younger being 18 to 18 to 41, 42, 40, right in there, just burning it down, man. I mean, like
Yeah.
mentally, creatively, physically, like can't stop, won't stop, just driven, man, driven hard. And then from 40 until now, I'm 49. I felt this sort of just this slide, and it's not out of lack of caring or anything like that. It's trying to balance wisdom with ability, and my abilities physical abilities obviously are waning some, um, but having the wisdom to try to work around that and go, okay, doing a 2 hour workout on the show day isn't going to happen anymore, probably for me. And doing a plyometric workout of jumping and moving, and I still love that stuff, but I can't do that and then go jump and move and bounce and play a show as well. So my workouts have become more slow and methodical, weightlifting, and now my workouts at home when I'm not playing shows, I have to do more cardio stuff. I have to go for runs, or I have to like I said, that stair walking things to get my heart rate up. But when we're on tour, my workouts are more slow weight stuff and stretching, you know.
Right.
But the thing is like I the way that my mind and body package that, or I guess maybe the way my body packages that is, oh, we're slowing down, you know. And I think that seeps into my mind a little bit too. And so um I don't know, man. I don't know how much people want me to go down that road of of all the self-doubt and all this other shit that I deal with, but
Do you think there's a or okay, so say for example, you were tasked to either write a song or write a story or whatever, but you have to write one version of the story when you're at your peak, say you're not depressed, you're in a good mood, you're in a good headspace, you're there. And then you have to do the same thing when you're down on yourself, super depressed. When it comes to that final art piece, do you think there'll be a lot more similarities or differences between the final two based on your kind of like where your mind's at?
there would be zero similarities.
Interesting.
Um the When I'm depressed, man, it's all I can do to work. Like and I've been look, I mean, yeah. We always end up talking about this stuff,
No, okay,
man.
so
No,
selfishly,
but
could your band be like, Eric, we need a song, we need you depressed, buddy?
well, the subject matter comes from depression for sure. I
Gotcha.
have a hard time actually doing the work when I'm depressed. Like
Got it.
I can put myself in that headspace. Yeah, to write for sure. I do it all the time. Not on purpose. I don't purposely go, oh, I'm going to write a song about depression.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a song about, it's just whatever comes out. But, um, uh, I have a hard time not writing stuff that I don't feel, you know. That's why it's good to have more than two people in a room sometimes. There was a song we wrote. this last session that like I didn't feel at all, but we had to write it. And so, you know, I just kind of faked it till I made it a little bit with it. It's a good exercise. But but yeah, I mean it's to actually write like I don't get blocked when I'm depressed. Now I write really good. This is something I've never tried to do either, and I probably should. I write really good poetry when I'm depressed. Like that's really kind of my outlet when I'm depressed. That or artwork, like doing paintings or something. That stuff feels more real to me. Like the song stuff, I think I put pressure on myself about the songs, because it's like, oh, I'm a songwriter, so I have to be good at this. And when I'm depressed, sometimes I'm just not good at putting my feelings into words in that moment. But for some reason, poetry, I guess maybe because it doesn't have to have it doesn't necessarily have to rhyme or anything. I can just kind of start it with stream of consciousness. And maybe I've talked about this before, but the poetry stuff that I've got, if you read it, usually the first third doesn't have any rhyme at all. I'm just writing. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it starts to get this rhythm and rhyme to it by the end. Um, it would be interesting to take some of that stuff and actually put it to music because I've never really thought about that. I just kind of think about them as poems, but
I had sent you that Ethan Hawke interview where he talks about when people only look at poetry or read it or whatever when they're super sad. It's like, or when they're like, they're dealing with heartbreak or loss, death or
mhm.
loss, or and the way I was kind of like, holy shit! Like I actually only really feel like writing that type of stuff or reading about it when I'm in those moods. And his whole thing was you can enjoy poetry on all the good days too. Like poetry doesn't have to be uh like an escapism or like a form of like hiding who you really are. It's like when you're happy, read poetry because there is happy poems and stuff like that. I thought it was
Yeah,
super interesting his approach to that.
yeah, I mean, it's you're right. I mean, it's a good it's good to read people good to read the way people put thoughts and emotions into something like that. Because you can actually find I know that poetry seems to be like you say poetry and like people go, oh
Yeah.
God. A lot of people roll their eyes, it's like, oh, I get, whatever. But it's just it's they're songs without melody. That's all they are. And uh sometimes for me, sometimes not having the distraction of the music, the thing that I love about the music, that sometimes the thing that I love about the music is the distraction from the meaning of what's going on. Like I'm thinking about melodies and I'm feeling melody, and I mean, look, a great song is the perfect yeah, amalgamation of rhythm, chord progression, melody, and lyric, and it just all kind of melts into this perfect thing, this perfect moment. There are moments in songs that are perfect, the perfect lyric with the perfect melody, with the perfect chord progression, with the perfect rhythm. And but with poetry, it's it's more just about poetry has a beat to it. It can have a beat, but you kind of find the beat when you're reading it. It's not given to you. Um, so sometimes that stuff just sticks more for me. I like it better. I mean, sometimes, man, I'll write not even poems. It's just almost like I'm blogging to myself. Like I'll just write about something. Um, I wrote I wrote this thing down the other day about um, my depression's been really, really bad lately, like super bad. We've talked about it, recently, but um, I heard someone say something about, and I've told people this, they say, oh, it won't last. The bad times won't last. And it's true. They don't last. You get through it and you get to the other side. And that's just sort of that's the short term thing that helps you out. But like in that moment when I was in really depressed and I was watching watching a YouTube video about something, me trying to find some help, and this person said, just remember, the dark times don't last. And it was like, it really pissed me off in that moment, hearing somebody say that. And so I wrote something about that. I wrote about how, you know, people say the dark times don't last. And I was like, I'm even guilty of telling people that. But anyway, I wrote this thing out and I sent it to a friend of mine and he was having a moment. And I was like, well, let me send you something that I wrote about that. And he's like, holy shit, this is like the most perfect way I've ever heard anybody describe this and how it feels. Um, and again, that wasn't even a poem. That was just something that I was, writing. And one day, man, some of these things I might do something with them. I just sort of, it's, it works the same way. The interesting thing is it works the same way as a song with me. It's like I'll start writing and then the universe just downloads this thing to me. It's like and a lot of the time those stream of consciousness things like that, I don't write. I don't physically write. I like to write. We've talked about this before. I like to write with a pen and paper, but they're just notes on my phone because I'm usually having coffee or something. I don't have a pen and paper, and I'm just typing on my phone. So I have a lot of stuff that lives like that too. Um, but there's healing in that too, man, in the same way that like that it is with the song. It's not that big, huge feeling of accomplishment that I get from a song. It's very it's not that grandiose. It's very, very small. It's a
Yeah.
very small satisfaction to like, but there is something very healing about just laying down my feelings on paper like that. And it's almost like um now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it is just as huge an accomplishment because I do get the same I do get a great feeling when I can put an emotion down that I feel really great about down on paper or in a note. Um
I started well yesterday. I'm gonna start releasing some of the stuff I've been writing over the years in poetry wise. And I was like, you know what? I don't really care. Like creatively, I just want to get all this stuff out of my head. I
yep.
feel like I've suppressed it. But like when it comes to like the poetry stuff, a lot of my poems, I don't pray as much as I should have or
Mm.
should or as I did after like I have a lot of anger, resentment towards God for like how everything with my dad and stuff. And but for me, I don't pray as much, but I write my thoughts and anger of the situation towards God in poetry form.
Mm.
And like I never kind of correlated the idea of that being my version of praying, but it's just me talking, writing freely without any like judgment or uh I'm not looking to gain anything from it, but I feel so much better because it feels like when I used to pray as
Well,
much
but
as I
but why is that not praying? I mean that
no, that's what
why
I'm saying. Like I never realized that cathartic release of writing.
yeah, but I think that the like, I'm not knocking uh, Western Christian
Yeah,
way of doing things. But I've had to stop myself when I'm praying from sounding like everything I've heard when people pray.
right. Like
There's
nothing.
this
Right.
there's this pomp that goes with it that we've been taught to do. And not that it shouldn't be reverent, but I don't think it needs to be reverent, honestly. Like we know, like if you are a person of faith, whatever your faith is, you obviously revere God.
Yeah.
Whoever God is to you, you honestly have a reverence for God. So I've had to stop myself from going, you know, oh Holy Father, blah blah blah, all this like because I've heard you're miming stuff you've
Correct.
heard. Praying is, look, dude, you know, I'm down in it right now, and I don't really know what's going on, and I'm just saying it in my voice a lot of the time, and I am
Right.
asking. I'm very humble about it as
Yeah, of
well.
course.
Or this is something that something I love, man, that I've talked an awful lot about with people lately is well, let's continue with your point before I go off on some other tangent. You writing that stuff down is a prayer because
Right.
you feel that. It's like look, even if I have a problem with God or there's a problem with something, um, that's what praying is. You're working out a problem or you're asking for help with a problem or you're being grateful for something or whatever. Um, so that's probably why it feels great because I mean, if you're writing a letter to God, if that's what you're doing, that is, that's what a prayer is, you know? I think it's beautiful that you have it written down and you have it forever. And, this is and also, man, it's a really good time capsule. Like, so
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
this is why I love the fact that you're writing in general is because you're going to be able to look back and go, oh wow, that's where I was then, and this is what I said then. Or like maybe you write something that right now isn't profound at all, but in 10 years or 5 years, when you look back at it, you'll read it and you'll be like, this is really profound to me now.
Right.
Um, I think that's I love the fact that's um, you know, that's how you're praying. I mean, that's really good. And again, man, and that's, you know, that's how songs are too. I mean, maybe songs are prayers, maybe poems are prayers, you know. I think they are in a way. I mean, you're not uh look, in the way Rick Rubin talks about the creative act, is a devotion to God.
Right.
You're like, when you write a song, I mean, and it's very, people might say that's super woo woo and whatever, but I like to think about it that way, uh, is we are bearing our souls first and foremost to to satiate something within ourselves. We're not thinking about an audience. We're just writing. That's when stuff is the most successful, man. Is when you start thinking about an audience. There, for me, for a song to feel really successful, it has to be honest first. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
Um, so if I'm thinking about what the audience is going to like, it starts out not honest. And not that a song like that can't be successful. It can be. You can start out writing a song. I'm going to write a song for this, and there are, the top 40 chart is littered, and the rock charts and country charts are littered with pandering, people that are pandering to an audience. And it
Mhm.
works. It works. I mean, if it didn't work, we wouldn't be required to sing about pickup trucks and whiskey in every single country song. For God's sakes,
Right.
stop it.
Right.
Dude, I've been in Nashville writing songs for country artists, and I've had songs that just felt so good and genuine to me. And literally people in the session are going, we need to put something about a truck in here or something. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, it pisses me off. Like, we need to put something about beer in here.
Yeah.
I think that if we change this lyric from, you know, I can't wait to put down the tailgate, I think it'll be a lot better, and it's like, but anyway, not that those things don't work. They do work. But for me personally, to feel um to feel like it's a real great piece of work, I have to feel like there's no pandering in it. Now, if my heart tells me that I need to write something about a tailgate or whiskey or something, that's different. It honestly is. It's like that's a different thing if it's really from a heartfelt place. And not that there aren't country songs out there that come from a heartfelt place that have those things. I mean, one of my favorite artists is Steven Wilson Jr.
Oh
right
yeah.
now, and he's just a fantastic singer and songwriter. Um, the first song on his record is called Devil, or The Devil. Um, and uh, the second line in the song is "Mama's back in jail," and it's like, well, how that's so like almost a trope about, if you David Allan Coe talking about writing the perfect country western song, you have to write about mamas, and you have to write about being in jail, and you have to write, but he says mama's back in jail, but like, I believe him. It's very heartfelt, and it's just something that like feels
Yeah.
real. So you can have tropes in songs that are genuine. That's not my point. I guess my point is that I have to feel like something is not written for an audience. Um, and um, if you can do those things, you know, write songs that feel like your audience is going to love it, that's different than writing it for them.
Right.
Um, you know, I like being a little bit scared of the audience. I like being a little bit frightened. I like going, uh, I don't know if they're going to love this or hate this. Like, this is either going to be they're either going to love this, or they're going to think that we're the worst band in history now. Um, that's actually a pretty good, healthy place to be.
Yeah.
So, um, but back to talking about how writing a poem or writing a story or writing a song is sort of a devotion to a higher power. It's like, it's not coming from you anyway, and um, so you just have to be there to receive it and to put it down, and it's a very personal thing. And there's to me also, man, one of the greatest feelings in the world is when you've got the music and the rest of the world doesn't have it yet. It's just yours and you're hanging on to it for a little while. And it's like, I can enjoy this. And, the rest of the world has to wait on it. And
In the time between for you as a song, when you have a song completed, it's about to be released, to the time there's a date, hey, at midnight tonight it's being released. How often do you feel like you want to push that a week later or go back and change something? Like, is finished for you on a
it,
song when it's finally out in public?
yeah, well, I mean, I have two different personalities. I have the guy that is obsessive about making sure that there is nothing that I would ever change about anything. And then there's the guy that has to learn how to let go of the things that aren't perfect and just let them be, wishing that I could change them, but knowing that's the wrong thing to do. Right. And um, Attention was a record that uh, I think there's one thing I would change on it. Only, and it's something sonic that I would change. And it's so minuscule that it doesn't matter. No one would ever hear it but me. Um, so that's the one thing on that record. I love that. I love the fact, but Planet Zero, there are a lot of things. I actually had to have this sit down with myself on Planet Zero. I was having a very rough mental time making that record. I was mentally was not well. I was very sick. Um, and I had to reconcile, did I leave these things because they needed to be left because they were imperfect and imperfection is what's making it great, which is um, where I arrived with it ultimately. Or am I, if I lost my edge and am I being lazy? Am I and not fixing these things because I don't have the energy right now to do it?
Right.
Um, but ultimately, the record is exactly what it needs to be. And it's out there with all of its scars and imperfections. And I mean, I won't say there are countless things I would change. It's not like that, but there are definitely like I listen to it. I'm like, I wish that this had been this or this was that or this was better than, this other thing. And so I'm trying to find a balance of that on this new record that we're working on of like, of, you know, leaving. I mean, I love leaving imperfections now. Like I really do. Like imperfections in performance. Like it's amazing what that does for the soul of a song. Um, Things that the listener doesn't care about, but the artist does. And sometimes if you leave things a little sloppy, it's like what makes the soup really good. Um, but look, man, I've had this, I'm almost sick of talking about it. This go around with my solo record that I have not released it, and I think there's a psychological reason to that. I say it's because I mean, honestly, like if there's a business reason, it's because I get, the Shinedown thing is just constantly rolling, and there's never really a perfect time or a perfect way to release something like that.
Yeah.
Um, you just kind of have to do it, and I got caught up making Planet Zero last time, so I couldn't release my record, and now I'm going to release it now, but I think there's also a psychological thing about like I like the fact that it's just for me. And that's kind of why I made it. I made it for me. I wanted to know, yeah, look, I wanted to know if I could make a weird not weird, but make like a rock opera type thing
Yeah.
that's, you know, that just satisfies me. And whatever happens with whatever other people think about it just is what it is. Um, but the thought of releasing that to the world and like releasing it to criticism and releasing it to people that are, I mean, dude, there are gonna be people that tell me it sucks real fucking bad, because there are gonna be people that think it's a giant fucking turd piece of shit. Um, and then hopefully there'll be other people that don't. But it's very odd to think about exposing it to that because it's a thing now. It lives, it breathes, it's its own thing. Um, but so uh I think I've hung on to it because of what you're talking about. Like it's just yeah, it's got scars on it. It's imperfect. It's my voice isn't. I'm not fucking Brent Smith. I'm not Daryl Palumbo. I'm not one of these like really uh uh emotive singers than the way I'd like to be. But I do the best I can, and so yeah, I think that maybe exposing that is that's maybe there's a psychological reason why I've hung on to it as well. Not to mention all the neurodivergency and dealing with that package about really. It's actually it's interesting, man, about you know how that affects um wanting to release something like that, you know. But I don't know if I answered any of your questions at all. I just rambled probably for a minute, but
Oh, I love it. It's the yeah, it's just the whole process, the whole creative process is super fascinating to me. Just I don't
so
it's yeah, go ahead.
well, now that I'm thinking about it, like I'm having to learn this. For me, the creative process is only about the creative process. It's always been that way. Like I just want to make the thing. I just want to create this thing, and I suck really hard at putting it out. I don't have that part of my brain. It's the ADD gets in the way. I have no business sense when it comes to that kind of thing, and so I'm really struggling through that part of the process of like trying to figure out how to release something is like you'd think at this point at 50 years old and I've been in this industry as long as I have that would be easy, but for me it was just always about, you know, I started out playing in bands and stuff and making records, but I mean my professional music career was really started in just making records. That's what I did. I was a producer and I wrote some, but I produced more, and I knew how to take other people's music and like help it along and record it, and so I all I had to do was make the thing, and then once it was made I moved on to making the next thing. um so it's always been about just doing the making of the thing, but what I've failed at is realizing that if I'm responsible for putting the thing out, whether it's poetry, music, story, whatever, the creative thing doesn't stop with just making it. It's not finished until you put it out into the world and give it to other people. Um, that's a really difficult part of the process for me, for whatever reason. Um, Technically difficult and emotionally difficult, both. Um, you know, I feel like somehow I'm going to spoil it if I release it or something. You know, it's like it's going to be ruined if I release it. Because people are gonna, or maybe it's the thing we've talked about before about like that riding that line between being a hero or a fraud, you know, being like I'm really good or I'm really terrible. And maybe if people hear this thing that I made or read this poem that I wrote or read the story, they're gonna realize that I'm a fraud and that I suck, and they're gonna be able to see through everything, you know.
Yeah,
And that goes back to trying to make things too perfect. You know, you want to make things perfect because you want them to be airtight. You don't want anybody to be able to poke any holes in anything you've done. Um, and uh, there's this extreme psychology with that, with me and with a lot of other people, where the things that you know, the things that I know people, I know that if I expose this thing, that expose it to criticism, that people are going to find all of the problems with it, and they're going to find all of the holes in it, and they're going to realize that Eric Bass is really terrible, and I've been able to fool everybody in the world up to this point somehow. Um, and now I'm going to be found out, you know. Uh, so I've got to learn to get over that. That like, and I mean, again, I mean, I feel like an infant. I mean, I'm 50 almost. I'm not 50 yet. I'm 49. I'll be 50 in October. But I feel like an infant too at the same time. It's like I've like what a weird
yeah,
thing and way for an adult to think and be. You know, and look, man, people that are bankers and lawyers and I'm not saying they don't experience some sort of imposter syndrome like that or something, but um they I don't know if they will understand. Those are usually the people that like, I don't get what you're talking about, you know. I think you have to have some sort of creative mind to understand that. Like I think we talked last time about like I'd rather be completely naked in front of people than you know, it's easier to do that than it is to throw lyrical ideas around in a room, you know,
right.
because you're exposed, and you're also worried that like, you know, what if everything that comes out of my mouth these people in this room are going to think is ridiculous, you know. um I watched there's a good documentary on might be on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix. It might be on Amazon, but it's Tom Petty. They found some 16 millimeter video of him when he was making Wildflowers.
Yeah,
And so
I've
it's
watched
like,
that.
yeah, and I watched that night before last. Um, and you know, I listened to some of the things that he says in his songs, and they're just really simple. And they're the things that I'm always nervous about throwing out in a songwriting session. It's like, man, if I say this, it's gonna sound you feel like every single thing has to be some profound, uh, earth moving, you know, thought and sentence that's put together, and people are and the skies open up and be like, oh wow, this guy's just brilliant. And it's like, no, man, I think it's just the simple things. It's the simple words that, you know. And he's talking about writing the song Wildflowers, and how the demo that he sang into his, because this happens a lot. Like I'll do this sometimes where I'll just sing something into my phone and it's kind of phonetic and it sounds good. And he said that whole song, he says the only time it happened in his career, he got his guitar. I think he was recording onto a tape cassette player at the time. And he sang the demo and he went back and listened to it, and it was just like what would normally be placeholder lyrics. He was like, no, this is the song. Like it's never going to be any different than this. Um, and it's so simple. Um, the lyrics of that song are so simple and it's so great. And maybe that's a something that we should all take with us into our lives, not just our creative, not just creative people, everyone. It's like, you know, the 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 bread and butter, the milk, the things that are really simple. The simple words are the best words sometimes. And it's not this overcomplicated thing, and it's not this overthought thing. Um, and when a band like Shinedown, we try to strive for lyrics a lot. We're always striving for lyrics. And maybe we could learn something too about, and we have in the past. I mean, there have been those moments of just
What's a
being
version of a
simple.
song you've heard in the last couple of years that it's a great song but shitty lyrics, or great lyrics but a shitty song? Because sometimes I'll hear a song and be like, I love the melody, I love the beat, I listen to the lyrics, or maybe it's just the voice I don't like. I'm
I,
just
I,
kind of
I'll, I'll
like,
give I'll give you the example for me, and people are going to say I'm blaspheming probably, but this is probably a pretty common example. And maybe I'm so I apologize for it to anyone here, but "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails,
the Johnny
like
Cash version is so
the,
good.
but the original version of that song just never grabbed me. It was like
Correct.
it was just kind of
I didn't believe it.
it was just kind of boring and and Trent Reznor's obviously a huge talent. I'm
Oh,
not. This isn't a this and again that is
the
his song.
song,
But by
right?
the way, let me clear this out. That is his song. He birthed it. He wrote it. I'm not saying that like this is not me saying Trent Reznor's terrible and Johnny Cash is great. That's not the point. But that song never resonated with me until I heard the Johnny Cash version of that song. And even Trent Reznor has said in interviews lately that like that's Johnny Cash's song now.
Yeah.
Like, because he didn't want Johnny Cash to record it. He thought it was the dumbest thing ever. And because obviously that song means a lot to Trent Reznor. But,
Hmm.
um, but
Yeah, that's a great.
that song didn't come across to me. Hallelujah is another one.
Leonard Cohen,
Leonard Cohen wrote Hallelujah,
Jeff Buckley.
but I didn't get it until Jeff Buckley sang it,
Yeah, interesting.
and
Yeah.
then Jeff Buckley sings it, and it's like it becomes it's like reaches its final form. It becomes that it it uh it becomes what it was always meant to be. And this is also, man, look, this plays into the woo-woo, you know, spiritual side of it. Is these things don't come from us. And maybe it realizes that, like, I have to take on a final form somewhere. Like I've not reached my final destination. And look, man, there are probably songs that I've written that maybe, I'm not saying this is gonna happen. Songs I've been involved in, songs that I've written, lyrics that I've written that maybe haven't reached their final form, that 20 years from now someone will cover a Shinedown song or an Eric Bass song or something, or a song that I wrote with another band, and it will reach its final form and will have wild success past what it did initially. Um, there's another a band I produced called Royal Teeth. They did a song called, I think it's called The Knife is the name of no, the band was The Knife that really wrote the song. The song was called Heartbeats, I think. I don't remember. I have to figure it out. But they Royal Teeth redid this song by this band called The Knife, and they did this like I'd never heard the song. I never heard the original. I didn't want to hear the original actually. Like they brought this thing in and we produced it. And it's on their EP, and it was like this uh great this great version of this song. Or I just love the song. Um, had this big beat to it and like big drums and felt good. And then I heard the original. Like at some point, I went back and listened to the original, and the original is like I think it's terrible. Like it's trash. I'm like, trash is awful.
Yeah,
I'm saying that funny. It's not trash. Nobody's art is trash. Uh, but I'm just like, I would have never listened to that original song and been inspired to do a remake of it
interesting.
ever.
So, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So they heard that, we're like, man,
Here,
we
I'm
can do
gonna,
something cool with this.
yeah. I'll tell you what it's called. Like, yeah, yeah. So they, um, uh, yeah. So the EP we did was called Act Naturally. Was the name of the EP. And yeah, Heartbeats is the song. So it's called Heartbeats, and the band was called The Knife. Who originally did it. Uh,
What a great
but
name.
yeah, man, I I always I loved producing more indie bands than rock bands. I didn't produce a lot of rock. I produced like heavy, like sort of um bands that kind of sound like The Used or something. Like I enjoyed that kind of stuff, and I enjoyed producing more like indie bands. Because there's sort of like the the sandbox was bigger. You know, you could just kind of play around in and try different things, and no one would look at you sideways if you wanted to do something weird or crazy with it. Um, but yeah, so that was one of the bands that I did.
Awesome. What's been going on in the news lately? You've been piqued your interest about. I know we were talking about solar flares, but the other
Well,
day,
I didn't even know about the Northern Lights thing, like, because I've been in here working and
pretty
I have not
wild.
not been on my phone, and I went out like night before last when I got on my phone. All these people were taking pictures of Northern Lights. I went outside, I didn't see them, but I don't know.
How about the
But they're good. I'm actually going out in the ocean on Monday. Um, I'm hoping if it's still around, if it's still solar flaring, uh, I'm leaving the dock at like 3:30 in the morning, so it'll be like dark out there in the ocean. So there shouldn't be a lot of light pollution. So I'm wondering if maybe I'll be able to see something out
it would
there.
have been wild if had you got out there that night and we're like, oh my God, it's bigger than the orbs. I got colors now. Where you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, yeah, man. What's been going on in the news? I don't.
How about the whistleblower from Boeing or whatever?
Oh yeah, dude. Come on, man. Got a second Boeing whistleblower that's testified in court. He's dead. The
How like at what
second
point
one.
are people like, okay,
Well,
they're
I
killing these people?
Well, I just think that that's it's all we're in a sad state, man. But I think we're at a point now where like that's just government driven. It's like the government's not going to let Boeing fail. They're not going to let them go down. They need them, you know. And so Boeing can just kind of do whatever they want to do with impunity. It seems like. I mean, the fact that look, man, the fact that the police department here in Charleston, South Carolina, is not going to investigate past just saying that this was a suicide, the original guy that killed himself here, because Boeing is here. Boeing has a factory here. Uh, that he says on camera and also to his friends that if I commit suicide, it's not suicide. He said that on camera. He said
Correct.
it to his friends, right? He's down here to testify. He's come back to Charleston to testify from Louisiana is where he lives now to testify in a trial against Boeing and about how their safety standards are terrible and how he was told to shut up about he was a safety guy. That was his thing. And he would, he was basically shut down from in his job from doing his job because it was going to cost money. Um, keeping, some of the things he was saying was like they went and inspected an aircraft and he found like 300 safety problems with it. And they took him off of that. They sent someone else. That person only found 50 things wrong with it. Right. And that was more acceptable. So he testifies this stuff in court. And by the way, this guy's been blowing the whistle on them for a while. It had,
Yes.
he's even before this trial, he was out there saying like Boeing is not keeping up with what they should keep up with as far as safety. He comes down here to testify in a trial. He gets finished with the first day of testifying, and they ask him if he doesn't mind sticking around for a second day of testimony. And he says, "Yeah, I'll stick around for a second day." And they find him dead in his car. by suicide in the hotel parking lot the next
Right.
morning. And the Charleston Police Department's like, yeah, it looks like a suicide. And it's like, knowing everything that's going on, you don't think that you should maybe dig in a little harder, or have you been told not to dig in?
Correct.
You know? And now there's a second guy who was testifying against Boeing. And what he was, did they try to say a heart attack or like natural causes or something with
Yeah, but
him?
like his whole thing was like this guy was fit. He had no pre-existing injuries. He wasn't a smoker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple more testifying this week.
And
So
and by the way, there is such a thing, like people say, oh, it could have been like there is a the CIA does have what's called a heart attack gun. Like it's
oh yeah,
been
for sure.
they
Yeah.
they rolled that thing out and they showed people that one in the 70s or something, right? Where it's like it shot an ice particulate that laced with some sort of toxin that would give people an instant heart attack. So basically it's like a needle-sized ice, you know, shard basically, and you shoot somebody with it, the ice melts, it
Yep.
leaves this pin-sized hole, you never see it, they have a heart attack, they're dead. Um, yeah, it's pretty
I just saw another video, a lady from Pfizer that was part of like I think she was marketing or research, one of those forever. And she basically put a video on X recently saying, hey, I'm not suicidal. And like seeing that stuff more and more often with these big major companies that are obviously under scrutiny for doing a lot of stuff poorly and or unethically wrong and all this stuff. It's kind of like I don't ever remember a time in my life pre-COVID where I would see a lot of stuff. Is it because the way the access to information now and people are researching, actually trying to think outside the what people tell, that people are now like big companies are now afraid of what we know as a in mass. Like I'm just trying to. I don't remember nearly as many of these videos coming out there with "I'm not suicidal." Maybe John McAfee uh, was one of the earlier ones I remember seeing, but I don't remember anyone kind of throwing themselves
well
out there with the whole whistleblower thing.
well because I mean maybe they just weren't smart enough to do that before. You
Right,
know, it's like now we know, like, I think now people are getting wise, like, oh shit, there are people dying because they're saying things they shouldn't say, or they
right.
should say, but that people don't want them to say. And so that's a good way to, look, if I end up dead, it's not me, you know, is a good way to, uh, if you do pass away, it's a good way to solidify what you're saying as true, you know. If the message is what's most important to you, that seems like a good thing to say. I think that if I were going to roll out something that I knew that I was going to be pushing the buttons of an industry that, even if I didn't feel like anything was going to happen, it's probably a good thing to say. By the way, I'm not suicidal, and
Right.
now in my case, I talk about depression so much they could point to that all the way down the thing.
Episode 4 of Taco
Yeah,
Tuesdays.
yeah, 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 right, for sure. Yeah, man, it's I just think that unfortunately our the powers that be have got us in a place now where like we are just programmed to know that we should be frightened of our government, we should be frightened of people in power, and there's really nothing we can do about it at the end of the day. It's a really helpless kind of horrible way to feel and place to be. That's how I feel. It's like, man, and that's how they want you to be. They don't want you to rock the boat. They want to be able to continue to move and do whatever they want to,
Do you think if tomorrow, if they were like, hey, another pandemic or power issue, wherever it is, you're all going back to your homes again, the first time it happened, I could maybe forgive, hey, we'll move the goalpost. I'll give you 6 months to figure this out. But if they were to do the same type of thing again, do you think more people would fight back against this now?
oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
I'm always wondering why would people let bad parts of history repeat themselves? I've never understood, and I say that now because if the police are knocking on my door and beating the shit out of you because you're not complying, it's like, is me getting the shit kicked out of me worth it? Will other people look at that and be like, you know what? If he took a baton to the face by some black letter agency because they're protesting or fighting back, then is it would I want to get hit in the head with it? Because my friend did, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around like what needs to happen for people to kind of like fight back. When you look at Brazil, right, or Argentina, South America, all these countries, they're protesting and the millions and millions of people against their governments.
Yeah.
And
You don't
The
see that. You don't see
mainstream
that.
media doesn't talk about it.
You don't see it on the news. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Because they, dude, there is a look, it's not a conspiracy at this point that there is a lockstep sort of agenda that's going on between governments and media. And,
Of
we
course.
talk about the farmers and all that stuff and how, that's why people are seeking alternative forms of information, whether it's in podcasts or, you know, things that can't be that aren't as regulated. Unfortunately though, man, most people for some reason still just turn on the news and that's what the news is. And
Weird.
like, I mean, it's yeah, it's just this big psyop that's going on. Uh and I'll tell you I forget where I heard this. It's not my original thought, but um it was there is some podcast out there that's all based around like conspiracy theories and that kind of thing. And by the way, like I don't even like that word anymore because a lot of conspiracy theories just end up being truth at the end of the day.
Correct.
It's at this point it's like, you know, Chris Cuomo, man, coming out with the fact like they played when he was at CNN talking to Don, was it Don
Levis.
Lemon or Lemon? I don't know what it was.
Lemming.
Yeah,
Lemming. Who
Don
cares?
Lemming.
Yeah.
But talking to him about ivermectin, right? And the fact that like, oh, these people are taking horse dewormer, brother, and they're man, they just need to be, you know, ostracized and they're so
Yeah.
stupid and all this stuff. And now he came out on a podcast recently. He's like, yeah, I'm taking ivermectin now. He's like, I was wrong. Well, he's trying to play this thing like how we didn't have the information. It's like, yes, you did. You had the information. Like
Right.
for people who don't know, ivermectin was and is it's an antiparasitic medication that won a Nobel Prize for its use in human beings. The guy that created ivermectin won a Nobel Prize because for people that live in jungle areas and stuff like that. It kept the parasites out of their body, and
Yeah.
it's the side effects of ivermectin are safer than the side effects of aspirin. Okay, well, when people started taking ivermectin to try
Joe
to
Rogan.
they found that ivermectin had some properties and qualities that helped fight COVID. And so when people started taking ivermectin as a protocol, the media went after them because ivermectin is in horse dewormer. It is. It's like it's an antiparasitic. But they started ostracizing people and saying that people were taking horse dewormer. And that was the go-to line because they wanted people to take this vaccine. They didn't want people to find alternative ways of treating this thing or to find any sort of cure. It's what it seemed to me. That's what seemed obvious to me. It was like we need to keep people scared and sick. That's what we need to do. Um, and another one was hydroxychloroquine
Yeah.
was another one. That hydroxychloroquine is a malaria drug that has been around for 80 years. By the way, neither one of these drugs, both of these drugs have ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine both have they're past their patents where people can make where they make generic forms of it. So you can't
Yeah.
make money off of it.
It
Big
was cheap.
pharma companies can't make money off of this stuff. So hydroxychloroquine, which is a proven malaria drug that again is super safe, like safe. And the government said that they weren't going to, who was it that was saying they weren't going to allow doctors to prescribe it for COVID? Like you couldn't
Was it
prescribe.
CDC? I think it was CDC.
Yeah. And again, follow the money, right? Well, because you can't force a vaccine on people if there's already something in place that can help cure it, right? And so, or you can't do the emergency. That's what it was, the emergency push through of the drug, meaning without trials. And so anything that's had any sort of efficacy against it that money couldn't be made off of, they were ostracizing or making it um, not available. I actually had an experience. I'll say this too. I don't mind naming names because there's really nothing I didn't have any sort of legal recourse with it at the time. Well, I had COVID really badly. I got COVID really badly when we were on tour. I was in Dallas and
Yeah.
I ended up staying in that hotel room for 2 weeks. And there was a moment where I was feeling like maybe I need to go to the hospital. Like my 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 blood oxygen level had dropped down to like 90. It was not good. And so my doctor said, I'm going to call you in hydroxychloroquine and you can go down to the CVS and get it. He calls me back 10 minutes later. He goes, hey, man, I just called two CVS. I'll just say it. You can put it up at the top too if you want. Uh, and they're both refusing to fill the hydroxychloroquine prescription. And he said the second lady I talked to, I said, don't you know? He goes, I need to get hydroxychloroquine prescription. She goes, well, what's it for? And he said, well, it's for someone with COVID. She goes, I don't believe in that. So she's ideologically captured at this point, right? It became a right and a left issue because I think Trump had said that he took
Yes.
hydroxychloroquine as
Yeah.
part of and so that became the thing. Trump said he took it, so it's bad. Um, she says, I don't believe in that. And he said, well, don't you know that you could possibly be, this is a pharmacist. Don't you know that you could possibly be killing people by not letting their doctors prescribe them? She said, I don't care, and hung up the phone. And so what he did is he ended up calling it into there was he went right to the source of the pharmacy that actually makes the pills, the compounding pharmacy, and got them to ordered it from there in Florida and overnighted it to me. And you know what happened? I started taking the hydroxychloroquine, and within 3 or 4 hours, my blood oxygen level went back up. Um, but there is someone who is so captured by the fact that vaccines good, anything else bad, because that's what CNN said, or that's what the news says, or MSNBC or Fox or whoever has said it, that these pharmacists at CVS Pharmacy were willing to let people be sick and 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 go against what their doctors wanted them to take. My doctor wanted me to take this. This woman has nothing to do with that.
Correct.
In a very safe medication. And he could have said, "Oh, it's for malaria or it's for lupus or something." But no, he said he was being honest, you know.
Just to
He
prove
was
a
he
point too, right?
Yeah, he wasn't going to lie about what I was taking it for.
Of course.
Um and look, there's a provision like if there's in the pharmacist's code or whatever that you don't have to fill a prescription that you don't feel is the right thing to do. And so they're allowed to do that. But normally that just doesn't happen. But the
But
fact
who
that
are
she
they to like not listen to a doctor?
but the fact that she was doing it out of ideology, not out of wanting to, it's not going to harm anybody. It's again, it's like it's a drug that's been around for 80 years and it's very
Right.
people take a regular regimen of hydroxychloroquine on the daily when they live in jungle environments,
Yeah.
you know? So it's just sad, man, that like that's where we are. So coming back around full circle is we live in a world where it's like if our government and the media that is their mouthpiece wants us to think a certain way and to do a certain thing, that narrative is going to be rolled out. And that's just what it is. So I implore people when they're listening to the news, mainstream news, or reading mainstream the New York Times or the Newsweek magazine or whatever, really think about what you're being fed. Right now you got this, these wars going on. Well, they're telling you who to root for all the time. They're telling you who the bad guys are and who the good guys are. Um, it's worth doing research to your own research to dig into that stuff and find out why they're wanting you to think that. Are they right? They might be. They might be right. I'm not saying that they're always wrong, but it's worth doing your own research to figure it out and to understand why are they pushing this so hard? You know,
I hate
why
when you
is
go. Yeah.
why is Zelensky on the cover of Time magazine? You know, uh, why is he coming and speaking in our Congress? Why is our Congress waving Ukrainian flags?
Yeah.
Why is the news media telling you that's a great thing?
Yeah.
Not that look again, you can go back. Not that I separate the people of Ukraine and the people of Russia
Versus the
from
people in charge.
dude. Look, we've got a girl that's working here at our barn now who's Ukrainian. She and her husband live here, and her father can't come because he's there. You have to, if you're a male there, you have to stay until you're 60 because you can be called into military service. So he's like 58 years old, and her dad's still there, but her mom's here. Her husband was already in the United States before the before the conflict happened. That's how he's here. But her family farm has been burned to the ground and destroyed by the Russians and all. So she has this personal experience with that that I don't have. So I'm not, again, I'm not picking sides. What I'm saying is or Israel Palestine. You know, you're being told, someone's out there telling you what to think and how to think. You know, you have to research both sides and really figure out. I like to know why things are happening. I like whys. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Why is Putin attacking Ukraine? Uh, why are our politicians so adamant about defending Ukraine? You know, well, it's a money laundering operation.
No.
You know, so think about it this way, like these politicians like making money. They like uh you know it. Look, if you want to, this makes me mad. I don't know if it'd make other people mad, but you should look up politicians' net worth before they got into politics, before they got into
Oh.
Congress, or and 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 then what their net worth is now that they've been in Congress, and the only job they've had is being a
The
congressperson.
insider trading is ridiculous.
Well, but not just that, but the money laundering. So why did we just approve another $48 billion for Ukraine? We're in the hundreds. What is it, $700 billion we've sent there now. Okay. And by the way, none of that money has gone to rebuild Maui or anything.
Our own laws and policies for the benefit of our own people are being dictated by how much money we're going to allow to go to Ukraine.
Yeah. So so well, politicians can't just take billions of dollars and just put it in their pocket because that would be found out. So what are
Right.
they doing? Well, they're taking that, they're approving it to send over to a proxy war that we're fighting. We're not in a war, but we're in a war. So we approve this budget to send billions of dollars to Ukraine for them to buy military equipment. Who are they buying it from? They're buying it from us. So we're sending them the money. They in turn send the money back to the United States. And then so let's just say they buy Boeing aircraft, right? With that money. Uh, well then Boeing is lining the pockets of the politicians, and they're putting the money back into the politicians and into their own pocket. And so, you know, the politicians are keeping the military companies happy, and uh the military the military contractors or companies that are building the stuff are also are then, you know, aligning themselves with the politicians that help them out, you know, through donations or sweet deals for their family members
Right.
or whatever, you know. So it's just a money laundering operation. It's just we send the money out, but it's coming back here anyway. That's also a tactic that's been used in the past when the economy's bad, right? If you ever notice, anytime the economy's bad in U.S. history and in world history, start a war.
Yep.
It drives the economy back up, you know, or don't even start a war. We're now at a place where like we don't have to, technically, we don't have to lose any lives. We just let them. And by the way, look, the other thing too, man, is that it's been known kind of in the background, you don't hear this on the news, but that Putin's kind of at a place where he would do he would sign a ceasefire treaty sort of thing, right? And we could end this thing with Ukraine. But our government and or the Biden administration is not in any way interested in that. And they're interested in keeping the war machine rolling because they're hoping it's going to help the economy and it's also going to line their pockets.
I think one of the things I wish I kind of maybe I'll start researching, but when you hear of like the continent of Africa, I'm sure there are leaders there, whether it's tribal or however they set it up. There's some terrible leaders where genocide,
Oh
the
yeah.
killing, like the blood diamond stuff, that trade. I wonder, is it because why don't we ever get involved in those type of conflicts? Is it because there's nothing there for us to gain from it and we just don't
Yeah.
care? Like it's so weird to me because you hear about all this stuff, where
Yeah,
it's like we never got
well,
involved.
yeah, well, there's another thing going on with Ukraine too, and I'll tie this into the Africa thing, is that Ukraine has been a money laundering operation for politicians for a long time.
Oh yeah,
The Ukraine was one of the most corrupt governments and corrupt places in the world prior to Russia moving in, right?
right.
Um, there were a lot of politicians that had interests in companies in Ukraine and were doing all sorts of illegal backroom things and dealings with companies in Ukraine. So Russia rolls into Ukraine, you're cutting off the gravy train for them, and also you're running the risk of being outed as well for what you were doing. If because you don't think that if Putin wins in Ukraine and he takes Ukraine back into Russian control, that he won't go, oh, look at what was going on here. You know,
Oh,
because here's something people don't know too is that the Ukrainian government that was in place that aligned with Putin um wouldn't play ball necessarily with the United States. And so we actually were instrumental in having Zelensky elected and installed, that whole government. So it's kind of a westernized government that is put in place there. Um, we got the people in place in Ukraine that we wanted there, not me, but our politicians. And they're in place, and now we can do all this corruption, and we
right.
can involve ourselves in these companies. So that's why we don't care about it. The reason why we're told to care about Ukraine, all of a sudden Ukraine is the and not that what's going on isn't awful. I'm not saying this. I'm talking about from a perspective of the United States. We're being told to care about this. All of a sudden it's like no one cared about Ukraine. But Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014, took Crimea. We didn't care at that moment.
Right.
We used that for the government change out thing we did, right? But Putin invaded Georgia in 2008. Nobody cared about that. We it was a non-event. I mean, it happened, but we were like, it's just Putin being Putin, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So why all of a sudden now he rolls into Ukraine? Are we is it's now we're told to care. That's what I mean about watching the news and
Yes.
figuring out why are we being told to care about this all of a sudden? Why all of a sudden is this a thing we're supposed to care about? Uh, and it's just for me, man, it's just the lemmings that just wave Ukraine flags around. It's not that I don't have any sympathy for Ukraine. I have massive sympathy for anyone in a war and who's been invaded because that is what happened, right? The people, I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking governments. And the fact that our government it's so odd to me how the use of propaganda and media, we make half of our country all of a sudden wear yellow and blue flag outfits and wave Ukrainian
Yeah.
flags around. Like, just like, because I'm told this is what I'm supposed to do, you know, do some research and figure out why you're supposed to care. And if you still care, good, you did your research.
Yeah.
Um, but the reason why the African countries and stuff is because um there's no reason. Yeah, we have no assets there. We have no reason to worry about that. I think, it's there are atrocities going on all over the world.
Oh,
There are people being invaded. There's awful
correct.
things happening left and right that if we were really this
Humanitarian.
altruistic
Yeah.
peacekeeping force that we hold ourselves up to be, that we would worry about those places, but we don't care. You know, I care about the people. Our government doesn't care because there's no money for them in that. There's no power in that. Now, if it'd be really interesting uh if one of those countries sat on a big uranium mine or something, or a big uh by the way, you talked about diamonds. It's interesting, man, something that I heard recently. And I saved it. I'll have to look it up again. I'm gonna get all the details wrong. But there's something about how like diamonds aren't rare. We've been told that diamonds are rare.
Yeah.
And that like De Beers in the 20s came out with this whole thing about how rare diamonds were and to drive the price of them up.
Yeah.
But actually diamonds are like one of the most common things you'll find on
To
Earth.
control it.
So
Yeah.
you're talking about diamond, but why do we not care? Probably because diamonds are common. If diamonds weren't common, I guarantee you we'd care about what's going on
Oh,
in these
oh yeah.
countries. So like, what is rare? Well, uranium's rare, lithium is pretty rare, and it's very valuable. So if you look around the world at the places where the United States is involved, or other
Yeah.
countries, China, where do we get involved? We get involved where the money is. That's all it is. It's not about the people, it's about the money. We get involved where the money is. Um, so where there's oil, where there's lithium, where there's uranium, uh, you know, that's where we get involved. And so next time the news media tells you that you should care about something like that, you need to, I double check why. Um, and sometimes, man, look, on a human level, I care about all these people. On a human level, I care about the Ukrainians. I care about the Palestinians. I care about the Israelis. I care about people who are being harmed, the people who are being harmed by what's going on, um, by bad leadership and people in control. Um, the leadership I could care less about, like I look at Zelensky and it's like, I just see this like sort of sad puppet, right? Because now
Mhm.
you're getting reports that he's taking some of this money. He's building a yacht right now.
Yeah, super yacht. Yeah.
Yeah, he's building. He's having a yacht built for himself. That doesn't sound very heroic to me. That doesn't sound like a man of the people. Yes, okay, look, he did stay in Kiev when when the Russians were coming in, and not that that wasn't an act of bravery and heroism or whatever. I
But did he
get that.
know?
But now but he's still wearing his combat fatigues and rolling around in this thing. He's got a look now, just like reminds me of Castro, reminds me of Arafat, reminds me of these people that like he'll never not wear his combat fatigues now. That's become his identity, right? But you find out that he's spending money on other things. And then it's like while this girl who works here at the barn is showing me pictures of or I'm seeing pictures. She hasn't shown me, but she has pictures on her Facebook. I guess that Kelly was showing me of like her family's farm that's destroyed, you know? Well, why isn't that money that Zelensky's getting going to that? There's a war effort underway, right? Well, does that involve super yachts? I don't think so.
Right. I think I figured out one of our other bonus episodes. One of us will be a good side, one will be the bad side. We have to pick like a world leaders or like war people, and
War people.
they have to battle each other. Uh, So one of the things I want to leave this episode on, there's like this old cemetery by my house in Massachusetts where I go walk and run, listen to music, and very peaceful. No one bothers here. Super old. We're talking like 1800s, like Civil War people in there. And so I look at like I love old gravestones. I like some of those like they'll always say like 3 or 4 words,
Hmm.
or it's like who they were, what that person was. So I guess my question to you is, if on your tombstone, like what 3 words or phrases would you want on your tombstone when you die? That would like best encompass everything you are or how you lived your life.
I don't know. I don't think that's up to me. I think it's up to you. Like, I mean, at the end of the day,
Okay, so I'm picking yours.
yeah, I think that, but I think that's like, if I have to think about that question, how I would like to be remembered or how I would like to be thought of is probably not how I'm going to be thought of or remembered.
Interesting.
Um, it's what I like. I can't. I'm not gonna be able to get this down to 3 words, but I would like for people to, I'd like to be remembered as some. Yeah, I think that a lot of time we all have this fantasy of ourselves, of like
Of
who
how we
we
lived
are.
our lives. Yeah.
Well, no, but I think honestly, like in real time, I think we have a fantasy of ourselves. I think we have a made up story of who we think we are versus who we actually are to other people. Um, First thing to remember is we're all the main character in our own stories.
Correct.
Everyone else is a background character. So, we're the most important, whether we want to admit it or not, we're the most important thing in our lives, right? My wife and I love each other dearly and immensely. Um, but I'm pretty sure that in her mind, she's the main character. I'm not, and in my mind, I'm the main character and she's not.
Right.
Um, so in our brain, we have this view of ourselves of like, and I think it's this mix of who we think we are and who we would like to be all at the same time. And that sort of makes this false. I don't say false. False is bad, but it's not a real cross section of who we actually are. So for me, it's like if I thought about how I would want to be remembered, it would be, as uh, uh, this really great creative person who wrote really good songs and stories and was also a mentor to people and left the world a better place than,
Yeah.
try to be nice to people and kind and all these things. Well, maybe people when they view me only view me as one of those things. Do I really think at the end of the day that I'm like going to be remembered as some prolific artist? And no, probably not. I wish that were the case, but probably not. Um, I think the people around me will remember. I'm making a mark on the world, but not at this point in my life, not a huge mark on the world. I mean, of course, I'm involved. I'm in this
Yeah, of course.
successful band in the United States and other places in the world. Uh, and I am writing those songs and delivering that message and packaging it sonically for the world. But those types of people aren't remembered very often. We remember the characters, right? I'm not really a character. The world will remember a Brent Smith. They won't remember an Eric Bass. It's like the world thinks about and remembers Robert Plant, Jimmy Page. They don't even think about John Paul Jones, right?
Yeah, and I feel so
Uh,
bad for that guy. 'Cause, like,
and
he's
do-
doing
and that dude is like,
the best, probably.
that dude is the most talented motherfucker in every room he walks into. You
Correct.
know, um, you remember the characters. So I probably won't be remembered in that way like I would like to be because I'm not a character. Um, but hopefully my friends remember me as someone who was loyal and fun. And
Yeah.
yes, depressive. Okay, I get that, uh, but meant well, cared about people. So that's probably,
You
and
know,
at the end of the day, maybe that's more important. It's to be remembered as a confidant and a friend, and uh, someone that you can just have these types of conversations like you and I are having. That's how I
yeah.
think about you, right? Is you're just someone that I enjoy being around, whose company I like, and who I respect, and whose respect I would like to have. And um, I think that at the end of the day, man, that's most important. Like what goes on the tombstone. I've been around a lot of tombstones lately, right? I've been a
Yeah.
lot of funerals, a lot of stuff going on with that. And so I've been the interesting thing is that like my mom's side of the family, um, one part of that family are all kind of buried in this one cemetery.
Yeah.
And so I can go back and look at great grandparents' graves. And, I know stories about these people, but like I never met them, but here I am standing at their
But now
grave.
the world is gonna think they know this person just based on what's on the.
Yeah, man. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what I would want on my
To kind of
tombstone.
go back when you mentioned like the loyalty, yes, depressed. That's why I don't. I think we've talked about Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh. As
Hmm.
depressed as that character was, he always showed up.
Yeah.
He always showed up for his friends and his people, even as shitty as the day he was always there. I think that for me is like the idea of being someone that was remembered as they always showed up.
Yep.
They're super powerful to that.
Yeah,
There's
man. Yeah, dude. It's yeah, I mean that's the difficult thing about it, right? Like Eeyore's actually a very good person, or not a person, but a very good character for
what?
people for people to aspire to who have depression, because it is true, man. He was always there. He was always in the adventure, right?
Yeah.
And me, man, I'm just like I don't want to go on the adventure when I'm depressed. Like I want to not be there. Um, but I think I've seen that meme lately that's rolling around the internet where they talk about how like but his friends always included him,
Yeah.
and I love that, man. That's true. It's like you can't. I guess that's one thing I worry about with the depression is that like I'm a broken record. That's the first thing. My friends are always listening to me talk about the same things, and I don't want to be a broken record. And it causes me not want to talk to them about my issues. Talking always helps, but if I just sound like a broken record, I'm just saying the same things over and over and over again. I feel like that's a problem for
Well, what's
them.
interesting with you is that
Uh,
we have mutual friends that are depressed or going through stuff, and you're the first one to always be like, I'll reach out or I'll talk to them. And it's like
yeah,
you are you are able to kind of suppress your depression to help someone who you perceive maybe they are in greater need of assistance or help or someone to talk to. It's such an interesting dynamic when depressed people can get in a room or even talk to each other and help each other out.
yeah, man. Well, it's you wouldn't want to you have to have the experience of it, I think, to really understand it. It's why like it's why I've never really liked therapy too much, because unless my therapist has dealt with depression,
Right.
because that's what I want. Because I want someone who feels it, knows it, understands it intimately, rather than just seeing it from a clinical standpoint. And it's hard to find that. I haven't found a lot of success in therapy. Um, because they all just want to give you worksheets and do this and bring me a list next week of this, this, and this. And it's like, this isn't helping. This is not helping me. Um, but so depressed people helping other depressed people. Like I've got a couple of great friends that I help and they help me. And I have a very hard time reaching out for help again. Like I should reach out more to them more than I do. I love the fact that they reach out to me.
Right, but you're the first person to help them as opposed to it's just weird how you're able to jump, not weird, but you're able to jump in there and then feel like you can't do the same, ask the same of them.
Yeah, it is weird, actually. Um, I just don't ever want to be a bother. I don't ever want to be I get worried, man, that I, especially like on tour and stuff, that I'm just like miserable to be around, and I don't want to be that guy. And that's why I get quiet when I get depressed. I just go to bed. I don't hang out very much. It's not that it's like I just don't want to bring everybody else down.
Right.
And um I know that's not healthy, but also you all aren't responsible for my happiness either. And so um
But there's still a
I
duty to make sure everyone is, you don't have to be on the same page, but make sure everyone's okay. Like this,
Yeah, but to the broken record thing, it's like I don't mind sounding like a broken record to someone else who has depression, because they're worried about the same thing. They're worried about sounding like a broken record too. And so I don't mind talking to a friend of mine who has depression and is dealing with it, and me telling them the stuff that I've told them ad nauseum, because it is the same thing, man. You're talking about the same things over and over again, and you're just trying to help each other get past that. So I don't mind them talking to me about that. I want my friends who are depressed to talk to me about their broken record stuff, Um, I'm not saying we don't find answers, I don't think. I don't think we find new answers ever. But there is something about just the talking, and every once in a while someone will have something profound that they think or say or write down, or something that we can share. Like that thing I told you that I shared with my friend the other day about, the darkness doesn't last. Um, I'm not saying it was a very uplifting thing that I wrote. It was actually kind of cynical, but it's real and it's how it feels, and it helped
right.
him. It helped him out in a way that he told me he kept reading it over and over again all day. Um, because maybe I was able to put something into words that he couldn't put into words, right? Um, that's why it's important for us to help each other out with that stuff. And is because at least we know what the other person is going through, and hopefully your cycles don't line up. That's always the helpful thing. It's like, you know you don't want your cycles to line up. Like it's
Right.
if you're both depressed at the same time, that's really bad. Or the people that you're helping, like you want, like when I'm up, I can help you when you're down here, and then we cross over, and you know the opposite is, we switch places, we reverse. um so yeah, man, it's I don't remember what we were talking about. Eeyore, I guess that's how we started
Yeah.
this. But the fact that his friends always included him in everything, and I love that meme. It makes me feel good, because I do feel like that, man. It's Eeyore is a great analog for the depressed person. It really is, because you don't want to be depressed, man. That's the other thing, is like you don't want this thing that you have to. I don't want to wake up like this. I don't want to wake up having thoughts that I don't want to have. I don't want to, I don't want to be the person nobody wants to be around. Um, so when your friends bring you along no matter what, that's uh that's really great.
Yeah. It's like the cartoons back that era, or even the books. Like they didn't tell you did they never openly said, "Hey, Eeyore's depressed." You knew some of your life based on how that creature or whatever thing was acting. Shows today, they always, "Oh, I'm Sarah and I'm depressed." It's like it seems so like forced, and it's good that obviously shows and cartoons and stuff are talking about these mental health and depression or whatever, but it doesn't seem as impactful. And I don't know. I don't want to take away from the people who are creating this stuff now, they're trying to at least openly talk about
Well,
depression.
well, it's back to songs, right? It's like
Yeah,
the reason why songs work really well is because everything is a metaphor, and you can make points without beating someone over the head about it.
correct.
And so when you lose the metaphor in a story, when you start just beating people over the head with it, it's a bit much, you know.
Yeah,
It's like I like to, human beings like to solve problems, and if you have a character that's complex and you have to pick that person apart, and then you realize, oh, they're depressed, um, that's more it's more fun, you know. Some of the best writing I remember was Battlestar Galactica, that 2003 version of Battlestar Galactica that is one of my favorite most well-written shows of all time. Uh, and the characters had so many layers, and there was a character on there that ended up committing suicide, and you didn't see it coming. Like it was like totally shocked me when
yep.
it happened. Uh, but then it caused me to go back and look at that character in the past, and they were actually
Reaching out.
kind of
Yep.
setting it up and reaching out, and like, yeah, but you realize that like this, it was just a good reminder. Instead of going, this person's depressed and they're going to kill themselves, it was like, oh my God, that person just, what happened? And it causes me to go back and look and go, oh, you didn't realize that person was going through it the way they were going through it. But then you go back and watch that character again and see all the things that are happening. So that led up to that terrible thing happening and that terrible event. Um, and uh, the nuance of that is more interesting than just someone going, knowing that someone is depressed and that being the thing, and you're being beat over the head with it. But um, yeah, I don't know, man. I wish I had it all figured out, but I don't. I don't have any of this stuff figured out. None of what we talked about today do I have figured out.
Well, it's Mother's Day, so
It is
are
Mother's
you,
Day.
are you doing anything with your mom?
Yeah, I'm going over to my so we're closing on selling my grandmother's house Tuesday.
Yep.
And so that my family came in town this weekend. Everybody kind of spent the night at the house last night. They kind of did
Yeah,
a slumber
good.
party over there, kind of like a one last everybody in the house. They were watching old family movies and stuff.
That's
And
awesome.
um, something interesting about watching those family movies though that I realized is I was just watching a few of them. It was like me and Kelly, like right after we met and stuff, were on there and like we're kids, and just how like not seriously my family took the world. Like it was like nothing was serious, man. We were all stuff was happening and we are going through stuff, but like, you know, look how much bigger the Christmases have gotten now than what they used to be when they were smaller and more simple. Uh, I feel like they were it was almost better, man. We were just like everybody was commenting on that. Like, wow, there aren't as many presents under the tree, and but it's like, yeah, look at how happy we were.
I
Like
will.
everybody was happy and having fun, and you know I don't know, and it also caused me to realize too, like I look at my nieces and nephews sometimes and other kids, and I'm like, oh man, yeah, they're in trouble, and then I looked at myself in those videos at their age that they are now, and I'm like, oh, I was in trouble too. Like,
Yeah,
they'll be fine, the kids will be all right, everybody will be okay.
I love those old videos because the Christmas stuff, especially at Easter, like my dad's father would always have this big VHS recorder recording everything. No one had phones, but now when you look at the videos, the Christmases and holidays now, as everyone gets together with the cousins, it's like everyone's got their phones out, taking the pictures and stupid reels. And it's like if I looked at myself, if I was my nieces now, and obviously I'm guilty of it too, taking pictures of them opening their presents and stuff, and I look back, if they saw me as a kid, they'd be like, I wonder if they'd look at that and be like, there's so much more splendor there. There's
Yeah.
so much more. You're in the moment, right? As
Yep.
opposed to trying to create your own moments that no one's to remember. I'll remember every Christmas I had until I was 18.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Yeah.
now where I'm like, I couldn't tell you what I got this year for Christmas.
Well, the other thing about all of that too is that interestingly enough, the one of the videos we were watching was the first year that we got the video camera.
Oh,
The first camcorder we ever got.
so
And so
clunky.
we're trying to figure out how to use it and all this stuff. But it's like I thought it was interesting that my nieces and nephews were sitting there watching their parents at 10 years old,
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's like I'll never get that chance. I'll never see anything like that with my parents, right? So like that was they're the kind of the first generation that gets to watch that stuff. And yet here's the thing. We're sitting there watching that stuff, and instead of watching their mother be an idiot at 10 years old and laughing at her, they're on their phone the whole time.
Yeah.
They were on Instagram or on one of them was playing like a clickbait game, you
Yeah.
know.
Shocker.
But
Yeah.
anyway, it is what it is. They take that stuff
Awesome.
for granted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mother's Day I'm gonna go over there to the house and um I've got so in my grandmother's house there was this the wall there was this wood panel because they still got wood paneling in the house because it's old. Uh, but like where everybody's height was measured when they were kids.
Are you
And there's
taking that?
I'm going to take it off the wall and take it with us. Yes, I got to go take that off the wall. And I think we might make a table out of it or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
it's awesome.
I got to go do that and then fishing tomorrow and then start guitar recording on Tuesday.
I love it. I'll yeah, I think it's a good spot to end it.
Cool.